and speak to political analyst Sanusha Naidu and reflect on the nominees that were announced yesterday by the ANC's Electoral Committee for the party's highest decision-making body, that's the National Executive Committee. Sanusha, thank you very much for availing yourself this afternoon. Perhaps let's start with the response that we have received from the presidency, and not the president necessarily himself. We understand that he is bothered with studying the contents of the report. He's always been a consultative somebody and currently consulting with relevant stakeholders. What to make of this moment that at midday on Friday nothing has come of an address from the president?
Good afternoon to you and to the viewers. I think it really tells us in what a critical juncture we've reached in terms of this whole situation. I mean, the waiting seems to be painful, endless, and it's just an impasse that we're currently experiencing, which I think even if the president is studying this report and taking it under serious consideration, consulting, making sure that every aspect and every sentence in that report is being scrutinized in terms of what we're also hearing and from legal experts saying that there are anomalies and discrepancies in the report itself. I think the point of departure for me is that when the spokesperson yesterday said there will be an address to the nation by President Ramaphosa, even if it was to say, I'm taking this under review for myself, I'm taking it under review to make sure that I've exhausted every interpretation of this report to understand the implications this would have, I think that would have been good enough for me as an ordinary South African to think that the president is still coming back to the citizens of the country. As you and I sit here, we are basically speculating. We're trying to gather and extrapolate information based on sources of information that are being coming out from within the party, trying to gather and piece together what is going to happen with regard to the special NEC meeting. This NEC meeting was supposed to have started. It's now been pushed to a later time today. I mean, it's just all so unnecessary if you really want to be serious about what's happening in the country and take the fact that the markets are in a tiz, everything is in a tailspin, but most importantly, to take the people of the country into your confidence, which I think the president needs to start doing, even if it's going to be a situation whether or not he stays or goes.
Taking a look at the situation of whether he stays or not, are we waiting for the inevitable? What does the inevitable appear to be like to you, at least?
Well, the inevitable for me is that you're seeing varied interpretations around, based on the insert, based on Govan Whittles' report, looking at different so-called advisors to the president who have suggested that he do not resign in a hastily manner. I'm a bit concerned that what we are doing is that we may be prolonging the inevitable. I mean, this report, as much as there are questions around certain of the way in which the report has been framed, questions about, there's a case that he has to answer for that may have certain gaps that hasn't been filled, etc. I mean, all of the things that we've been talking about in the run-up and the anticipation of what this recommendation was going to be, I think the challenge right now is how does the president navigate the credibility crisis that he's experiencing, the damaging impact that this will have on both his personality, his persona, the person, this kind of cloud that will always follow him, the controversy around this. And I think the challenge right now is, what's going on inside the party versus what's happening outside of the party. And again, I think, with regard to some of the interpretation impressions that I have formulated for myself, and these are my personal views, but, in a way that I see it is, I think the challenge is going to be, even if he stays, how does he navigate the fact that there'll always be that unanswered set of questions? Yes, he's going to fight this, but if he still fights it, the challenge remains is he'll be that guy who essentially went through this serious test of his credibility, and depending what the outcome would be, it'll always be his presidency will be tainted. So if he is going to be seen as a first-term president, do you want to leave it in that kind of legacy, or do you want to bow out gracefully?
you speak of him being seen as that guy. He did make it on the ticket of being an anti-corruption champion, and the report has an undertone of corruption having taken place here, at least. And so when you take a look at also the fact that some people have accused him of being a dilly-dallying president, not decisive, and in this moment, if we read this particular moment, how will he be judged for not making a decision?
You know, it's really, really important that even in his own kind of way, he needs to be decisive about himself now. I think the challenge of him always being consultative, trying to make sure that he has angled all angles of the story. Also, you know, when you look at the digital vibes issue and you look at the fact that he waited until the former health minister resigned, he didn't want to push. That kind of consultative approach can also be a very, damaging approach, as we now see. So that indecisiveness, the fact that, even if he came out yesterday and said to whoever advised him and advised to say don't have that press conference or that briefing at 8 o'clock yesterday evening, I mean, it doesn't bode well for you from a PR perspective, from an optics, from a brand perspective. And so I think that decisiveness and indecisiveness just becomes that much harder to shake the mantle off. And so even in his own kind of dilemma that he finds himself in the crosshairs of this report, and despite what everybody is saying, he himself at the end of the day has to make the decision.
It is often said that the fish rots from the head. So if you take a look at the announcement yesterday of the nominees by the party's electoral committee, there are some names there that some sectors of society have found problematic. And so it would appear from the outside looking in, is that a correct analysis that the entire organization, if you take a look at some of the names that are problematic on the nomination list, that this renewal process or this reinvigorating of the party is merely optics?
Yeah, I mean, some of the people that have come back have been implicated in the Zondo Commission. Now, remember, the Zondo Commission has to now be there's the Deputy President was in Parliament talking about how to take the recommendations of the Zondo Commission forward. So now that we're all seized with the report on the Phala Phala question and the recommendation by the Nkobo panel, we are now forgetting that the Zondo Commission also has to be ventilated and taken forward in terms of the next steps. But now that we see the nomination process and people that have been implicated are coming back, it's almost as if the situation that we find ourselves in has become so tenuous for the party, because you're dealing with a president who is being, backed in a corner in terms of the fact that the step-aside rule is now becoming full circle to him. The challenges around whether he resigns and fights this from the outside, or he stays and then he fights it from within. What does this mean when he goes to elective conference? Will he have the kind of leverage? Does he still have the support on the NEC? And then a new NEC that will be voted in at the elective conference, again, that will be important in terms of those that were basically pushed out, sidelined based on his kind of clean governance approach to his presidency, both within the party and within the republic, and his reform agenda. All of this is going to come full circle. So I think it's opened up a serious Pandora's box right now within the ANC.
Thank you very much for availing yourself. Sanusha Naidu is a political analyst.